In this video, I'm gonna break down 3 things I learned from watching 2 Olympic athletes. One won gold, one won 8th place. They're both highly talented, but something got in between them and the result. And that's what we're gonna talk about now. All right, the 2 skaters we're gonna talk about are Eli Milani and Alyssa Lin. Why I'm so excited about this as a case study is that first, they're playing the exact same sport at the same time, so there's very little variables. Number 2, they are both about the same age. He is 21, she is 20. So the cool thing about this is they had totally different outcomes, totally different approaches, and this was a great kind of like case study for us all if you're a business owner or a high-performing person. Eli was like the golden child, right? And he's very, very good at what he does, but to my understanding, he's outcome focused, right? He was very focused on the outcome of winning, and that's because he had a lot of pressure. He was like the poster boy for this Olympics, and he might have expected to win. Not his words, but there was this understanding that he should blow everyone away by a mile. In an interview, he actually stated that on his side, he jumped on the ice and he sat there. And as soon as he got on the position to start, he had a fluttering bunch of thoughts. And all these thoughts were everything he had been doing to build up to this moment. It flashbacks. And that, he said, overwhelmed him. And that was right before he did his routine, which could throw you off. So why is this important? So we had 2 different skaters at the same time, both for Team USA. And Eli was focused on the magnitude of the moment, right? It's as if his whole career led up to this moment and he had to deliver, otherwise it didn't matter. In life, when we think that way, we often lose control of our superpower, which is the ability to flow. When you lose the ability to flow, and you have an expectation to win, you now can concentrate all of your energy into this one moment. And why that's very dangerous is if you feel stress, you will not probably perform as best as you could. That's why it's important when you build a business, build a team, work with you're trying to high performer yourself. There's this thing called psychological safety. When you feel safe, when you feel like you've been to this moment before, when you have that pattern recognition, it actually lowers your stress and increases your ability to just execute. Because if you are stressed, you're not going to get the full best, results. Because if you're nervous, you're now thinking about, and your body's now worried about how to survive, not how to win. They're conserving energy, not using it all. And this is something that people in the military found out. When you're training for them to get used to certain behaviors, certain stressors, so that when that stress comes up, they're still able to think clearly because it is not an environment or a situation that increases their stress level, which then confuses your ability, decreases your ability to execute, right? So that's a high level understanding I have from working with some people like that. When we think about this person, he was very outcome focused, and that was great. So I'm gonna go over here to explain it. He was expecting to win, and he had the pressure to win. And what ended up happening? Well, he got in 8th place. What ended up happening? He got in 8th place. And that was not a result he wanted, nor did anyone even expect. He's supposed to win gold. He didn't even place. And he fell, I think, multiple times during his routine, and that was very unlike him, knowing that he can actually execute all those moves very easily on command. That's the story of Eli. Then you have the story of Alyssa. Now, Alyssa, she came into this event with this belief that she said, I just want to have fun. I want to just do the best I can when I get in the ice. I don't even care to win gold. So she was very much process focused, right? She had spent her career, her time getting to this moment, just like Eli did. But she was focused on not the result, but the moment. Right? She was like, I've built my career up to this point, and now I just get to have fun because I can't control it. I can't control the outcome. And she ended up getting 1st place, wowing everybody because of how good she did. Now, there's no surprise that when you focus on the process versus the outcome, you do better. It's the same way in business. When you focus on trying to get a sale, you often lose the sale, right? You're desperate for the outcome. Versus if you're just focused on doing a good process, helping someone make a decision, well, you increase the likelihood that they actually make a decision because you're allowing it to flow. An example of how this transcends into business is I remember when I was actually I had the opportunity to speak on stage. And it was the first time ever. It was about 2 years ago. And since then, I've done 120 business workshops. So I had the opportunity to break the nervous energy I had. But I was super nervous the first time. So what I do? I leaned in on a process. I practiced the speech. I broke it up, the hour speech, into thirds. I practiced each section, memorized it basically. Then I did it live 20 to 30 times in front of on the stage where I would be for the real time. And then I stepped on stage and I was nervous. My heart was beating fast. but I just leaned in on my process. I wasn't focused on crushing it. I was like, bro, I've done this before. While I did feel nervous, let's just hit it. And I did great. And I kept getting to do it, right? That's why I went on to do 119 more. The second time I did it, I was much more outcome focused. It's so funny. I had done a good job. And the second time, by the way, was just next week. I was outcome focused the second time because I was expecting not to win, but the first time I went, the audience was amazing. It felt awesome. Such good energy from the 100 people I spoke to. The second time, I expected the audience to be the same. And maybe I wasn't the same, but they definitely weren't. And then I felt like I didn't win. This is a sports analogy, but also a business analogy. In life, you don't want to force things because if you force it, it usually doesn't turn out your way. If you force someone to buy or force a current client to do something, you might lose them. Instead of you want to flow. The cool thing is this requires less energy, but requires you to get in the right state. This one maybe requires you not to get in the right state, because if you're not in the right state of mind, you can just force it, but it requires a decent amount of energy to force, right? So we want to be very careful when we're forcing things, and we want to focus on flowing. Here's one of the frameworks that I've used over the course of my career to help me and my teams focus our energy in the right areas, right? Because there's a limited amount of time and limited amount of energy, right? Resource allocation at its finest. But how do you divide it up? Well, Google came up with this, which is the 70-20-10, which is 70% of the time spend on the thing you know works, 20% allocate to a remix, and then 10 is something totally new. Someone much smarter than I identified that this balance will help you when it comes to marketing, scaling a business, whatever it is, spending your time to help you get that variation to get something different out. A little bit of a remix, which increases the likelihood you get a better result. And then you got to do what you know works, right? And I've boiled this down into life as 70% of the time, we got to just do the basics right. Fundamentals. This is the base. This is the core. 20%, we got to focus on the details that matter. There's the reputation or brand, right? The outcome, so to speak, right? So when I think about this is how I want to spend my time in a business. I don't want to focus a lot on my reputation and brand. Doing these things will help my reputation and brand. I don't want to shout from the mountaintops 70% of the time and say, I'm the best ever. Listen to me. It's like, well, what have you done? Right? So it's just the division of like actual value is it's way more valuable to do stuff right, focus on the right details, and then your reputation and brand will precede you. What I found high performers do is that they make sure that they get the basics done right. They have a process they follow and they stick to it. Whether that's waking up in the morning and brushing your teeth, whether that's cleaning out your email, whether that's actually following the sales script. There's a bunch of basics, the fundamentals that if you lose sight of it, you'll actually hurt your business. And it's actually that important. The details, well, that's where it's like the little stuff. And you want to be careful because a lot of the details might not matter, but there's some that matter the most. An example is, well, what does your sequence of steps look like in a sales process? What is the first email when it comes out to onboarding for fulfilling a customer? The last thing is this last bucket, which is basically just saying, hey, if you do everything right, there should be a North Star, which is why I want to spend at least 10% of my time thinking about where am I going? What do I want to be known for? Because that'll influence the rest of it. It's like a compass, right? That's why it's the tip of the spear or the top of the triangle. I think of it as what do I want? And am I on the way to get it? And it's like, this is my brand and reputation. It's like, this is very valuable, but it's not something I spend a lot of time on. I just want to review it weekly or monthly or yearly and make sure like, hey, are we doing well by our customers? Is our market reputation consistent with our reputation that we want to put out there? And if not, what do we need to change below to increase the likelihood that we get what we want, right? So it's just more of a North Star. That's why when I work with teams, I'm thinking about, well, what are we doing in the process? Who's doing it? And are we following the basics? Let's get this right first. And then we can get really, really granular and have fun with the details. And what I found is sometimes people they're flipping it. Some people have the worst option, like I was saying. Some people have it completely opposite. They spend 70% on their reputation and brand, 20% on details, and 10% on the fundamentals. Do you think this person will be successful? No. Just like if they focused on details at the if they switched these two, they wouldn't be successful either. That would cause them to spend time on things that don't matter, but never spend time on getting good at the basics. And if you think about this as the pyramid, well, this is the strongest part, the base. So we want to make sure we're building appropriately. So this framework has helped me think through resource allocation, identify what's important today and what's maybe not important, and then move forward with the business so I know that this needs to be done always, this needs to be very much prioritized, and then this will happen We just want to monitor it. So now we're going to relate everything we just said directly into business and the three main departments of every company: marketing, sales, and fulfillment. These are three of the biggest departments. And in the black is what I want to focus on, which I believe is more important, generally speaking, which is the process. And the bottom, well, that's the outcomes. So here's the three major departments of every company. And what I want to focus on is here, which is the process versus the outcomes. Now, this is my best approximation of like maybe where people fall mistakes to, and even I have fallen mistake to. When it comes to marketing, well, the most important thing is providing value throughout the marketing channel and funnel, right? Provide value, increase the likelihood people know who you are, what you offer, and how you're different than everyone else, and even maybe give them some value along the way. Versus focusing on getting views, right? Whether it's media or it's actual ads, views are important, but that's an outcome. And if I focus on the outcome, not the process, I'm not going to get good results. I'm going to be misguided. And that's my 2 cents. So when I think about marketing, I'm trying to say, hey, how can I provide value, not focus on views? When I'm thinking about sales, I'm trying to make sure people make decisions. When we focus on the outcome of closing is when we usually lose the sale. We become tense, we have commission breath, we get anxious, we force somebody to make a decision, right? We force them to close on the call when they actually just needed 24 more hours. And the last is fulfillment, something I, as a coach, struggle with a lot. I care about both of these, right? That you are both serviced and satisfied. But sometimes you are satisfied, but still need some more service, right? So that I've learned in my career that there's calls I'm having where someone might not be happy today, but can be ecstatic tomorrow if I just focus in on the process of serving them, not focus on why they're not happy today. And I think there's something to be said about like, yes, customer satisfaction is important, but it is an outcome. It is not a process. And if I focus on the process of serving and coaching and guiding, I will always make sure that I put my best foot forward for my customer and they will win. And that's what I try to focus on in my company, which is like, let's service them well so that we can hopefully satisfy them. My job is, to do so every time, but if they're not satisfied and I don't get the gold medal, I can't beat myself up. Because if I focus on satisfying everybody, number one, they won't get serviced the right way because we're prioritizing the wrong thing. And we might actually hurt the outcome. Meaning like we might not get that outcome because we're prioritizing the wrong things. So I rather focus on process, provide value in marketing, help people make decisions, and service them with a process the way we know it works. Not get views just to close people and make sure they're satisfied. Because if you satisfy everybody, that means you're not helping people sometimes. If you like this video, feel free to give us a follow. And if you have more questions or want us to cover different topics, feel free to leave a comment below and we're happy to answer them the best we can.